The Saturday afternoon shootout is on the air. Warning, although the information expressed on the show has been researched by our staff, it may not be correct. All opinions made by the hosts or their guests are theirs alone and should not be considered legal advice. Be sure to consult an attorney before attempting anything you hear on the show. Just because we say it on the internet doesn't mean it will stand up in court. Now, here are your hosts. Hello, hello, hello. You need to turn on our other speaker there.
There we go.
All my bags are packed, ready to go. I'm standing here outside your door. I hate to wake you up to say goodbye. Hold me like you'll never let me go.
Skipping the vinyl there.
Cause I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe.
You leaving on a jet plane, Brian?
Not yet.
I'm hoping you do. But it doesn't sound like you will.
My bags are packed because you never know what's going to happen with this
Today,
crazy government.
We had some huge news over the last couple weeks here. We have
What's
the
happening?
inauguration coming up.
Yep.
Lance Armstrong came out and admitted
He's
doping
gay?
on
Oh.
Oprah. Jodie Foster came
out,
again.
and said she's not single.
And what's this guy, Manti Te'o? He had a fake girlfriend.
Yeah, but now he's saying that it was a practical joke
He said it was
done
a
on
joke
him
and
or
he had
something.
nothing to do with it. We're not going to talk about any of that
No.
today because I really don't give a crap about it. But big news. Go turn on TMZ. You'll get some information on that.
Yeah. In the meantime, we want to welcome you to another episode of At Odds here in the greater Flint area on Flint Talk Radio, the Vehicle City, as they say. We're downtown on the 15th floor of the Wilson Building. Got a nice view outside downtown. Nice day, a little bit warm, a little overcast, but it's a little bit warmer. It was quite cold the last couple of days. People are out and about walking downtown. That's good to see. Flint is really trying to do a little better job, even though it was considered, the most dangerous city again in the country.
Most violent city, right?
We're gonna talk about national and state gun bans, some proposed, some that have actually been signed. We'll talk about Obama's executive orders to curb gun violence. We'll talk about some pro-gun bills that the Michigan State is putting through, and more. So stay tuned.
You know what's really kind of weird is that I actually kind of take some kind of dumb pleasure of the fact we're the most dangerous city in the nation.
It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah, because we're
sad.
number one in something. You know?
I don't think you're alone though on that.
It's like I really I got to admit I know that's not something you should take pride in.
No, it isn't really at all.
But hey, I mean, the city has nothing else. You have to be best at something.
Right. I mean, that's exactly my view, Nathan. That's what my view is.
That's too bad.
Well, if you want, we can start out with a Senate bill 59, which is going to reaffirm again concealed pistol holders' privacy.
That's here in Michigan.
That's here in Michigan, right? It's a state bill. It says that you can't release CPO holders' private information. That's good. We're also joining a lot of other states with a Michigan Firearms Freedom Act to make certain things about interstate commerce and to prohibit federal gun regulations to be applied.
Did you read that bill? Or
I haven't read the whole thing. I skimmed through it.
I wasn't that impressed with it, really, and I'm not a lawyer. But I don't know if it changes much. Basically, it was saying if a gun's manufactured in Michigan, wholly manufactured in Michigan, and stays in Michigan.
That's part of it, but it also says any firearms, the regulation of any firearms or accessories and ammunition. That doesn't have to be made here, but it's any federal regulation that they're going to oppose and not enforce.
Okay.
I mean, that's...
maybe I wasn't clear on it.
I'm looking at
that's not what I got
cut and paste right from the bill.
But that's all feel-good stuff in a way, because back years ago when Wyoming or Colorado didn't want to follow the 55-mile speed limit, and they refused to on their highways, the federal government said, well, we just won't give you funding for this or that.
Yeah.
And so that's what our state is so dependent upon the feds for everything.
Well, I know.
That's by the short and curlies.
It's a political statement is all it is.
Yeah,
but if you could get a majority of the states doing the same thing, maybe the federal government would get the idea.
Yeah, definitely not a bad thing, whether it
No,
has
it's nice to have it in place.
any real implications or not.
And Wyoming's fighting it. I think it's in court, isn't it? From a few years ago, they had a similar Firearm Freedoms Act, and I thought it was still being discussed. I don't know. There might be some litigation going on there that may come out of that. I guess the Senate is also, Mike Green is also going to reintroduce basically what the Senate Bill 59 was about enhancing the CPL holder. If they take classes, they can go in gun-free zones and things like that. It's basically the same thing, except that now they've taken it right away from the Sheriff's Department and put it right into the Michigan State Police. The county clerk would still be the place you go and get the application and fill out the forms and turn it in, but the approval, the background, everything would be done through MSU. And by doing that, they're going to reduce the fee by $15 and make it $90, and they're taking the money right away from the Sheriff's Department.
Please tell me it's not actually MSU doing it. You meant Michigan State Police.
I'm sorry, I meant not MSU. Yeah, MSU.
That would be a disaster.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that would be not.
I
good.
mean, you know.
Yeah, Michigan State Police. I'm sorry. So that's some stuff going on, which is good. Today they're having a rally. We saw some live photographs. We saw some current photographs. They got a nice crowd down there. I've got to call into some people down there, and they may call in. I couldn't get through to them. I had to leave it on their voice message. But if anybody is listening or watching that knows somebody that's at the rally that want to call into the show, they can. And that number is on our screen scrolling, and it's 810-208-1854, and you can call into the show. And if any other callers want to call in, we do have gift cards that we give away to callers if you have a question or comment. I found one thing that was interesting. We just saw it before the show here, and this was Channel News 10 in Lansing, said that there was a quote from the Michigan State Police and Lansing Police Department. It was they were saying, the rally is supposed to be a peaceful rally, and for that reason, Michigan State Police and Lansing Police Department say they are not planning on having any sort of presence at the Capitol.
Yeah, and that's hilarious. I think that's great, and
it is. It speaks
it's an
volumes.
accurate statement, but in the comment we saw from one of our good friends was we had to have hundreds of police at the right to work protests where there weren't
supposedly
firearms involved. It wasn't a firearm protest, but you have hundreds, thousands of people showing up with guns, and the state police says, well, we don't really need to be there. And it's because they're generally law-abiding citizens who aren't going to cause trouble.
And Nate and I have both been involved in two rallies at the Capitol, gun rallies. One was a Second Amendment march, and one was Constitutional rally. And so the police departments, both of them, have had experience with these groups, and they were really impressed on how we were. I mean, we were well behaved. We cleaned up after ourselves. There wasn't a speck of trash left on the grounds. We went around, made sure it was cleaned up. And I think they realize that we're a bunch of decent guys and good people and stuff.
The only thing that they requested of me was to try to keep you a little bit quieter next time.
Really?
Yeah.
The state police said that?
They'd said that.
Huh.
So I just want to pass that on a little bit.
They were trying to restrict my freedom of speech?
No.
Years ago, during the Clinton administration, Stephanopoulos, George Stephanopoulos, said about the NRA, and the NRA was being attacked at that point, too. He said, one thing good about the NRA, they didn't threaten, they just organized, they got involved. He said they're good people. I mean, this was from a man who doesn't agree with the NRA's position, and he had to admit that they're good people. So, I mean, gun rights groups overall are decent people.
And I've mentioned before, I think when we were talking about, I don't know if it was on the show or you and I were just talking, but you always get the violence and the threats and everything from the left. You see them at the right to work protests. You see them at the anti-NRA protests and things like that. You have the vagina ladies coming in attacking people. You don't get that from people on the right, in general. Obviously, I'm generalizing, but from gun groups, definitely, you don't get this mass violence, and things like that. And if you did have a problem, there's 1,000 other people around that are armed that are going to take care of the issue. I mean, that's the good thing about having guns around.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say on Facebook, somebody made a comment that there was going to be this rally today, and there were going to be guns, and somebody that wasn't a gun person commented and said, "Oh, I think that's really volatile, and you shouldn't have all those people there with guns because it could get really violent, and terrible,
Because it's never been done before.
And I posted, and I said, listen, as a person who's organized 2 gun rallies there, I can say that they're the most law-abiding and peaceful people that you can have, and we had 0 issues, and we had guns in the Capitol, in the chambers, and all over the place, and it was not an issue, and that person never responded again.
I'd say no law-abiding citizen has ever committed a crime with a firearm.
I think you could probably say that.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, Nate, do you want to just look at some of the executive orders? I have.
We
them
can
all.
do that, or you want to start with the garbage from New York? I mean, either way.
What do you want
They
to do?
kind of tie together.
What do you want to do?
I
You want to go state first, then go
Yeah,
national?
let's go. New York passed some extremely restrictive.
Own
They're
this
now way in the forefront of
They're number one.
being the
They're
most.
number
They
one
are.
to infringe upon your Second
Kind
Amendment.
of
right.
like John's happy about Flint being the most violent
Yeah.
city.
They're proud of that.
New York's
Yeah.
proud that they're
Yeah.
the most restrictive state when it comes to freedom and firearm
Well,
rights.
before I go into that, you want to do the soundbite from the governor, or do you want to do it afterwards?
This was Governor Cuomo, I think, at the State of the State address last week, I believe.
And I say to you, forget the extremists. It's simple. No one hunts with an assault rifle. No one needs 10 bullets to kill a deer.
Well, I do.
Tried and failed to get the leg.
Did you hear that? Did that come through at all?
Yeah, that came through.
'Cause I had a. No one needs 10 bullets to kill a deer.
I did. I missed him 9 times.
When has Cuomo ever been outside the New York City? I mean, or some other
I don't know,
location
but
like that.
but it was funny because on the social media thing, all of a sudden 8,000 pictures show up of guys with dead deers and their assault rifles that they killed the deer with. I mean,
it's
Yeah.
like, you assaulted a deer, I guess. So any rifle would.
yeah, I mean, yeah, the deer doesn't care what you shoot him with. It's just, well, anyways, this is what they actually passed, and then there's a funny little bit at the end. But they're going to further restrict assault weapons to be defined, because they already have an assault weapons ban, and it's 2 features. If it has a large magazine and a pistol grip or something. Now it's just going to be 1 feature. If it's got some kind of a suppressor, it's got a pistol grip, it's an assault weapon.
Just a grip.
Yeah, and that could be a shotgun, I suppose. I mean, that could be any gun. This doesn't have to be these evil black-looking guns. Make the unsafe storage of assault weapons a misdemeanor. I think it should be a civil infraction, but
Well, how do you enforce that?
it's hard to enforce it. But it's an after-the-fact thing. If a kid gets your gun and it wasn't locked up, then they can come after the owner. Or somebody else gets your gun.
And that wasn't the case before? I
yeah,
mean, come on.
Well, I don't know if there was an actual
Neglect covers a whole
yeah.
range of things like that.
All right, they're going to have a mandated police registry of assault weapons. Establish a state registry for all private sales. I don't know how they do that. With a background check done through a licensed dealer for a fee, excluding sales to immediate relatives. How do you enforce that? If I want to sell Nate a gun in the backyard, I don't know how the state can know about it.
Well, yeah, unless you don't really have private sales anymore and you have to do them all through an FFL holder. Somebody licensed federally to sell firearms.
No, it still doesn't stop me from selling you a gun in my house.
Well, when it's registered to you and you sell it to me,
Yeah, then it's unregistered.
well, then you're responsible for it.
I suppose.
Yeah, and
But I
think
mean,
that's-
it's anyways. You can't do it. This is the
I
scary part.
agree.
Require a therapist who believes a mental health patient made a credible threat to use a gun illegally to report the threat to a mental health director, who has to report it on to.
Wait a minute,
the police.
these people I went to college with, these guys who become therapists, who
Yep.
have ruined relationships and
That
are
hate
drug
guns.
abusers,
Yeah.
they're going to be the ones that people are going to be listening to.
Yep.
That's very
Yeah, and that's
sad
in New
and
York. I
scary.
mean, part of the executive orders that Obama signed that we'll get to dealt with
Addresses that as
dealt
well.
with medical professionals as well.
Yeah. No internet sales of weapons. Requires stores. Now, this is a burden on store owners. If you want to buy ammunition, the stores have to be registered with the state to sell it. They have to run a background check on buyers of ammo and keep an electronic database of bullet sales. Now, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's completely absurd. I mean, how many sales, how many sales are processed of ammunition every day? That's going to be a hell of a database.
Restrict ammunition magazines to 7 rounds. It's currently at 10. So they already had a magazine ban. Now,
Here's a little.
what?
maybe
You have 1 year to sell your high-capacity magazines out of state. If you're caught with it, it's a misdemeanor charge.
I believe you can also register them, but you can only ever load them with 7 rounds.
Doesn't say that. Didn't say that there, but maybe.
I think that's the case.
Require that stolen guns are reported within 24 hours. Increase sentences on guns that are taken into school properties. That's covered by federal law anyways. Increase penalties for shooting first responders. Don't shoot first responders.
Yeah, that one didn't make
You
any
can shoot
sense to
anybody
me.
else, but don't shoot first responders.
Obviously, we don't want first responders or anybody being shot.
Nobody should be shot. Unless they deserve it.
unjustifiably.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on. And this was from the that attack that we had not that long ago, where a guy
2 firefighters were killed.
set some fires and then waited with a scary assault rifle weapon.
I don't know what he shot him with.
Ammo clips that held a lot of bullets.
Magazine clips?
And he wasn't magazine clips, and he wasn't even hunting deer.
Listen, if you shoot a first responder, it's life in prison without parole.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I mean, I don't think that you need a special exemption for first responders in there.
If you kill your mother-in-law, you can be out in 5.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah. Limit state.
Let's punish criminals, and I mean, maybe that would be the correct approach to take.
The only good thing that came out of this is that they are going to protect gun owners from being identified publicly because of the brouhaha with all of the names being published and then all the hassles that they got and then all the robberies that took place and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of stuff that went on.
Yeah, the Journal News published 2 counties worth of
I'd like to see
pistol permit holders.
I'd like to see that newspaper who printed that out of business because they
It's-
overstepped their
I
budget.
heard
it's
they
going
were
that way.
almost. I heard it was
They're
almost
losing
out.
subscriptions, and they have additional expensive armed guards that they hired.
Well, I heard
ironically.
it was going down anyways, and this was probably something to get some publicity.
And we saw there was a home burglarized, maybe a couple things stolen, but the guns.
They did.
The guns, they couldn't get into the safe, but then
They tried.
Just yesterday or the day before, there was another house burglarized that was on the list, and they did get some guns.
Yeah. So brilliant.
Hard to say if it's connected to the papers publishing that or not, but I mean, come on.
And if
Highly
you
coincidental.
Yeah,
if you are, and if you are an assault rifle owner, you'll have to be recertified every 5 years.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a hell of a burden. Something funny that I saw that I thought you had, but maybe you didn't, was with this magazine clip.
I do have it, but go ahead.
With this magazine clip limit to 7 rounds.
Uh-huh.
What happened with this bill, which happens with a lot of bills,
They
is
forgot?
they gave it to them an hour before they voted on it, and nobody read it. So they missed the part where they forgot to exempt police officers.
So right now, every police officer is in violation of the law.
Well,
Showing
it
up
goes
with
into effect
t-shirt.
in March, but they better register those magazine clips, within the next year. But and they might have already put through an amendment to it. They were doing.
They were
that.
trying to
The
do
idiot
that, yeah.
that wrote a lot of the bill was putting an amendment through because obviously the police need to have guns.
But-
he said.
Who said? Cuomo?
I'll get the name. No,
Oh,
we
that's right.
should say his name here. So
So we don't have to.
I wanna.
I don't want to. I don't want to.
Too bad. Oh, never mind. He said that we can't give the criminals more ammo. By, give them more ammo than the police have by taking away bullets from the police because they can only have seven round clips.
Because we want a monopoly of force in the government.
Yeah, well, my point was if limiting what the police have, you're saying the criminals have more rounds now, then how is it not making a law-abiding citizen in as much danger by limiting the number of
They
rounds
don't
they
count.
have?
Only criminals and police count.
That's true.
Well,
That's a
another
good
thing is
point.
too, though, in some areas where you're not even allowed to have a bulletproof vest without permission or total. Oh, so you're trying to take a passive approach to your protection by wearing protective gear. They want to make
They
sure that you
criminalize
can kill.
that, yeah,
they
they-
want to make sure they can kill you when they want to. That's what they're saying. They want you vulnerable.
That's exactly right. No, I agree.
All right. Well, here's the president. What they're saying is he proposes a ban on high-capacity magazines and military-style assault weapons. And they also want to apparently authorize the expenditure because in 1994 when they passed it, they had expenditures of $30 billion to enforce this. That's today about $45 billion. So it's going to cost money to do this. And here's the money. All right, here they are. The total package, he says will cost at least $4.5 billion in new spending. And among some of these proposals are $4 billion for the president proposed to keep 1,500 cops on the streets in cities across the country.
Well, wait a second. Didn't $5 billion of the stimulus that he passed go to keeping police and fire on the streets in big cities?
Yeah.
Huh.
What this article is from is it's looking at the potential cost of implementing his executive order. So these aren't exactly.
I'm saying that's a repeat of
Yeah.
of what he already did in the stimulus package,
So
and it didn't
$4
work.
billion. So 20 million give stronger incentives for better data availability on background checks. 14 million to help train 14,000 more officers and other public and private personnel to respond to active shooter situations. Public and private personnel. 10 million to the Center for Disease Control to conduct his further research that he wants, which I'm sure will be unbiased and professional. 20 million to expand the national violent death reporting system. 150 million to put up to 1,000 new school resource officers and school counselors on the job. 30 million in one-time grants to states to help their school districts develop and implement emergency management plans. That's just solid money there. I mean, that'll be well spent.
Oh yeah.
They'll all get new computers and everything, and they won't spend it on. Anyways, 50 million.
Oh, come on now. Come on.
50
The
million
government
to
doesn't
help
waste money on things they don't need.
to help 8,000 schools create safer and more nurturing school climates. What the hell is that? More nurturing. It's more
self-esteem courses.
Yeah, it's just more
You're the best.
more
Here's a
nanny
trophy.
state. More nanny state. 15 million to provide. We can get like Governor Schneider had his welfare people up on his State of the Union. We'll get in that in a minute, maybe. 15 million to provide mental health first aid training for teachers. 40 million to school districts to work with law enforcement, mental health agents. A lot of redundancies here. 25 million state-based strategies to support young people aged 16 to 25 with mental health. That's not a bad thing because those tend to be the ones that do the shootings. 25 million to offer student mental health services for trauma or anxiety conflict resolutions. Lots of social stuff. 50 million to train social workers, blah, 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 and other mental health things. So it's costing taxpayers dollars when the solution, in my opinion, is you allow staff, parents, and others, law-abiding citizens, to carry damn guns in gun-free zones. You wouldn't have these mass shootings. And that wouldn't cost the government one damn dime.
But Brian,
According to one posting I read, the guy who did the shooting out there at that theater out west,
Yeah.
he actually sought out a theater that was gun-free.
That's exactly
We know.
right.
So,
we
I mean,
know.
yeah,
I mean,
so, I mean-
the argument is
another
mine.
little reported fact was that his high-capacity magazine clip in his assault weapon jammed, and he used a shotgun. I mean, come on. So the assault weapon crap it's just crap. But what I was going to say, Brian, is if we can save just one life,
It's worth it.
don't we have an obligation to try?
No.
Isn't that one life worth $4.3 billion to you? And
We were just,
I mean, come on, what price can you put on the life
we were discussing
of a child?
we were discussing at breakfast this morning how I would be on the Pierce Morgan show, you know, when he asked, why do you need an assault weapon? And I'd say, why not? Well, come on, why do you need it? You know, it kills children. I'm not that fond of kids anyways. They're blood-sucking little leeches, and I really don't like them. I've raised one, and it's draining. It's very, very draining.
Yeah, I mean, never mind.
Well, that's
It ages you immensely. So,
Wow.
you know, it's,
That's another thing in this culture. We all want to make everybody else's kid somebody else's kid. You know, it takes the village mentality.
well,
I think
I
that's-
don't disagree with that. We're human beings, you know. We got to get along
Yeah, but-
together. We should be
It should be a
responsible
safer
for
society.
kids, but
that analogy of the village is ridiculous.
at what price?
Yeah, but that needs to happen at a private, individual, community level, not at the government level at all, ever.
That's
Yeah, they're warm and
that's the
fuzzy. They show up
issue.
with assault rifles and black boots. Yeah, they're warm and fuzzy grand uncles, right? You know,
Yeah.
That's the issue. It shouldn't be a federal issue. It should be local. Let's see. You got anything else? I have a few things, but we can.
Well, I mean, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the executive orders.
Go ahead. Do you have the actual executive orders?
Yeah, I have a list of 23 of them. There were one or two more I think that he added.
If you want to read them, go ahead.
I mean, I can. That's
yeah, go
fine.
ahead. We can discuss them as you go, or we can just let you go.
Issue a presidential memorandum to require federal agencies to make relevant data available to federal background check systems.
Right. Force all the states to cooperate and create a.
Well, require federal agencies.
Oh, okay.
So I that didn't make sense to me. Basically, that's a one consolidated background or registration is what they're going for with that one. But
one database.
Address unnecessary legal barriers, particularly relating to health insurance portability and Accountability Act, that may prevent states from making information available to the background check system.
That's a dangerous one.
Yeah, that one tied with a couple other ones. Basically, what that's doing is taking HIPAA. This whole thing that was
flushing it down the toilet.
Clinton shoved through. I think the woman Clinton. What's her name? She bunked her head. I can't remember her name now.
H starts with an H.
Hillary.
Hannah?
That's her name. And it's supposed to protect patients. Information shared between the patient and the doctor
is confidential.
And it can't even be shared with the patient's parents in some cases. But with some of these changes, we're saying no. Well, now we kind of want the doctors to be obligated to share information related to guns and gun ownership and the mental state of their patients. And I mean, you'll have doctors with questionnaires and they'll be asking, do you own guns in your house? And you're like, oh, I'm here for an ingrown toenail. Well, do you own guns? Because
you don't have to answer the question.
Well, you don't, but I mean, and I don't think a lot of doctors are really on board with becoming spies for the government either.
And there's a lot of doctors that are pro-guns and wouldn't be asking these questions, but there's plenty that are anti-gun. But anyways, let's
improve incentives for states to share information with the background check system.
Actually, let me comment on that. I heard on a radio interview they talked with someone in California that was in charge of actually doing that. California's got one of the best background sharing databases with the feds. And they said, it took them 10 to 12 years to get that online and to do it. And, this is something that's not
money, too.
It's money, they said, and there was agreements they had to get through. And one of the stumbling blocks was that California didn't want to share medical data with a federal database. And if they did, they wanted to make sure it was only applicable to a gun background check and not used in any other way. And that was a blocking point for a while. So it's going to take the states money and time to implement all of this kind of stuff. So that's another issue. Go ahead.
Right. This directs the Attorney General, who, remember, Eric Fast and Furious Holder, right?
Yeah.
That's who this guy is. Direct him to review categories of individuals prohibited from having a gun to make sure that dangerous people aren't slipping through the cracks for the National Instant Background Check and thing. And the problem is, I think it's reversed, where there's too many false positives. And that's the problem with the background checks.
That's another issue.
If they looked at that, I mean, that would make background checks a bit more bearable, but still not justified or okay. But
there are a lot of people that were denied that shouldn't have been denied. So
proposed rulemaking to give law enforcement the ability to run a full background check on an individual before returning a seized gun.
Yeah, I disagree with that one.
That one's completely absurd, because you look at, like, here in Michigan, you get pulled over with a concealed pistol license. You are required to
inform them that you have a gun.
Inform that, and then you're required to hand over your gun if they ask.
If they ask for it.
And I've had that happen.
For officer safety.
Which I'm going to argue makes everybody much more dangerous, because the more you handle the gun, the more a mistake could happen.
Yeah.
But I got pulled over one of the very few times that I've ever been pulled over in my life.
Oh, that's not true.
They took my handgun. They could have. I would have had to wait for them to run a full background check before they give it back.
Yeah, that could be weeks.
And it could be. Well, I mean, Eric Holder is going to make that all streamlined.
Yeah.
So
it
should
crap.
be second.
For one thing, they
won't
should
even notice.
seize your gun anyways.
And if a cop's got your gun, it's probably going to end up in his collection at some point.
Well, I mean, that's what happens with a lot of surrendered guns.
And then keep in mind that there's only 7 or 8 states in this country that actually have handgun registrations. So they could pull over somebody from out of state that's handguns isn't even registered, and they could do a background check, but then they'll say, well, wait a minute, this gun isn't registered. How do we know this isn't stolen? And so it creates all kinds of issues.
You forgot about the federal gun registration.
Oh.
So everybody's gun will be registered at the federal level, which is where we want all the power.
Sure.
Published a letter from the ATF to federally licensed gun dealers providing guidance on how to run background checks for private sellers. So this is getting to the point that you made earlier. How would New York enforce background checks for private sales? One of the executive orders is for the ATF to teach FFL holders how to run background checks for private sales.
Yeah, but that's assuming that you and I go to an FFL and say, all right, we want
exactly. But
Okay,
I mean, that's
I'm
the
saying.
law.
And that works well with marijuana.
And yeah, but gun owners
And other
follow the
drugs.
law. That's what's crappy about this. And you're exactly right. Gun laws don't work. I mean,
Drug laws don't work.
drug laws is what I meant. Yeah, I mean, marijuana is illegal. I don't know anybody that smokes it, but I hear they're out there.
Again, that's another lie.
I don't know if it's a lie.
Right.
I mean, whatever. Launch a national safe and responsible gun ownership campaign. I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know if you have any more information on that, but I don't know if that means things like the NRA does.
Oh no, you can't have the NRA because they're a tainted source. You
Yeah,
can't let
well,
them do
we
that.
wouldn't want that darn eagle teaching kids how to handle a gun safely.
Eddie, he's a good guy. That's a fine eagle, Eddie is.
Review safety standards for gun locks, gun safes. Issue a presidential memorandum to require federal law enforcement to trace guns recovered in criminal investigations. I guess they don't do that right now. If a gun's in a crime, they don't try to find out who owned it.
I don't know.
No.
Remember, registration doesn't solve any crimes. That was one of the
I
things.
don't think it solved any,
That's
ever.
one of the things they asked about registration of some state's law enforcement agency, and they couldn't come up with any examples of a gun that was registered solving any crime.
Yeah.
So it's to use it as an excuse to solve crimes is just
It's absurd.
it's just a lie. It's just
And
not
remember,
true.
none of this has anything to do with guns.
Well, even if all guns were registered, okay, and they were used in a crime, does it stop the crime from happening? Does it stop the crime? Can you undo the effects? Because nope, you can't. This crime didn't happen with this gun because this is a registered gun. So it's absurd. I mean, it doesn't prevent. It's about control. It's not about gun control. It's about control.
Right, but think of the children.
Which I don't really care that much about.
Well, yeah, you
Establish that.
don't. You don't, but you're like Larry Pratt, who doesn't care, according to Pierce Morgan. I mean, come on. He
That's
doesn't care
absurd.
about anything.
I love that. You don't care about. You don't care about you don't care about children. I went.
Yeah.
Have I shot one? No. So
Yeah.
what's their point?
Yeah, not with a legal gun anyway. Nominate an ATF director, which that's just going to give
They've been
them
trying to
more
do that
power,
for
but
6 years.
Yeah, Congress won't.
No, I think gun groups were happy about that because now they have somebody that is going to be responsible for things, so
yeah.
they can go after them.
Release a Department of Justice report analyzing information on lost and stolen guns. Make it widely available to law enforcement. So you lose a gun. Well, if a gun's stolen, you'll have to
Report it.
and it'll be in a database.
Right.
I don't like
And
that. but
that helps fight crime. But go ahead.
there would be no crime. Provide law enforcement, first responders, and school officials with proper training for active shooter situations. Because
I don't
schools
disagree with
have-
that. But
yeah, but I mean, I remember being in high school and having to go through drills and things. Schools are doing it without the without the president, mandating
right.
it. Maximize enforcement efforts to prevent gun violence and prosecute gun crime.
And getting back to that previous point, that the NRA is trying to develop a program,
Yep.
Shield or something, whatever it is, I can't remember.
Yeah.
That's going to be private dollars. I don't think it'll cost
To help schools prepare.
to help schools come up with plans to prepare. So it can be
Maximize
done privately.
I already said. Issue a presidential memorandum directing the Center for Disease Control to research the causes and prevention
We
of
talked
gun
about
violence.
that. How much that would cost.
What do you think, though, that a report coming out of the CDC is going to say about gun violence?
It's bad.
That guns are causing the violence, right?
It's bad.
I mean, with this administration and with the state of the CDC now, I mean, what do you think the report's going to say? And they've done it before. When the president first took office, they came out with a report saying that Republicans and conservatives were the biggest threat to domestic terrorism, or the most likely to commit domestic terrorism. They retracted it shortly when they realized, oh, we won the election, but Americans are still Americans and don't actually believe that. But that's the kind of stuff we're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, they've done some reports in the past, and it's been shown that they were kind of biased in taking things out of
Yeah.
making broad and leaping statements.
A few more here. Direct the Attorney General to issue a report on the availability and most effective use of new gun safety technologies. and challenge the private sector to develop innovative technologies. And when it says challenge the private sector, what they mean is force the private sector to spend millions of dollars researching technology and implementing technology and costing the consumer more money and really making nothing safer. Clarified the Affordable Care Act does not prohibit doctors asking their patients about guns in their homes. So this ties in with the earlier one, giving the doctors the go-ahead to be spies and ask you about guns in your home and if you have guns. And
in essence, being an agent of the state.
And what the problem is, it's not you or I
Because you're going to have national health care, and they're all going to be agents of the state anyway.
It's not you or I going in a doctor asking, do you own guns and where are they stored and things, and we say, go to hell, it's none of your business. It's you take your 5-year-old in and they say, does daddy own a gun? You know, where does he keep it? Have you ever seen it? Has he let you touch it?
But the thing is, I don't know about you, but I don't leave my daughter in the doctor's room by herself, you know, when she was 5 years old. Parents are usually in the room with the doctors when they're being examined. And to go and be separated from them.
But you shouldn't have to be vigilant to sit there and wait to say, hey, don't answer that.
I agree. But I also am not going to leave my kid in a room with an adult.
No. But if someone says, hey, does your dad have any guns? I say, yeah.
Lots of them.
Yeah, right.
They're all over the house.
That's where you get in trouble with these sorts of things.
Yeah, I know.
You have a call, Phil?
Okay.
Phil. Hey, Phil, how you doing?
Hey, not bad. Hey, I got a comment for you.
Sure.
On this executive order, the number 16, about the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
I was listening on the radio the other day, and they had a guy, Rand Paul, I think his name is, and he's looking to do a lawsuit against it because the way he talks, President can't do that because the Affordable Care Act was a legislated deal.
Yeah.
And he can't do that with a presidential executive order.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. The issue with this is that the president is saying that it does not actually say that doctors are restricted from asking these. They're saying that people like Rand Paul are reading it wrong.
Well,
and I completely disagree. I've read it, and it says, hey, privacy is privacy. But Rand Paul, he's moderated a bit away from his dad, Ron, but he's really looking to run for president in 2016. Sure. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see if I can get behind him. I don't know, but he'll probably be opposing Chris Christie as the Democrat. What was that?
The president, you know.
What was that? Sorry.
I just say the president can't, go against the legislature deal, legally. I mean, they do it all the time, but they're not supposed to.
Yeah, exactly right.
And they can be challenged on a legal point.
You bet. That's all I needed.
Okay, well, anything else? I mean...
No, that's it.
All right.
All right, hey, well, thanks for calling.
You betcha.
All right,
bye-bye.
Bye.
So we through with that, or
a couple more if you want to go through.
Sure, go
Release a letter to healthcare providers clarifying that no federal law prohibits them from reporting threats of violence to law enforcement authorities. That piggybacks off of the last one with the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Provide incentives for schools to hire school resource officers. Develop model emergency response plans for schools like the NRA is doing with private money.
Sure.
Houses of worship and higher education. Release a letter to state health officials clarifying the scope of mental health services that Medicaid covers.
Yeah.
And I think that does, I don't want Medicaid to cover it, but it at least addresses the mental health issue, which we could discuss that if we really want to get into it, but that's more of an issue than the guns are. Well, I mean, they're closer to the right target.
And these are orders asking them to look into things and stuff, and if things are found, to be unlawful or to be contradictory to what he thinks they are, these things are going to be challenged and fought. So these aren't laws that are set in stone. These are things that are going to be challenged along the way.
Yep.
Was that the last one?
3 more.
Okay, go ahead.
He had a lot of executive orders.
He did.
He signed a couple of them. Well, we'll talk about that. But finalize regulations clarifying essential health benefits and party requirements within Affordable Care Act exchanges.
He's slipping those things in there that didn't really have anything to do with the guns necessarily. Yeah.
Commit to finalizing mental health parity regulations. launch a national dialogue led by Secretary Sebelius and Duncan on mental health. So the last few did actually, deal with mental health, which
is
I said,
an important
is going
aspect.
down the right trail.
Yep,
but
yep.
let's not forget that he came out Wednesday, Thursday was the press conference that he held, and he mentioned a couple of these executive orders that he would sign. That he had some protection there. He had some shields in front of him, to make sure that nobody would yell at him or anything. He had some little children there.
They're light. You can pick them up and put them in front of you.
And I said that was his
you.
plan, and
Yeah.
I think it's completely despicable.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw pictures of kids that supposedly wrote letters that said, "Hey, Mr. President, I wrote you a letter about all the debt we're incurring, and that can I be on TV too?"
Yeah. Or kids that wrote said, "I don't think you should restrict the Second Amendment."
I mean, if you're going to do it, I don't think children should be used in politics ever. I think it's completely despicable, and I wish I had the NRA ad to play, but we can talk about that. But if you're going to do it, at least be fair, because I'm sure that he got letters that were, pro.
I didn't see.
Hey, please let our teachers be armed so we don't die.
And I didn't see one kid on there that had actually used a firearm to save themselves or their siblings during break-ins and things that have happened across the country
Yeah, and that
in
happens.
the last year.
That happens.
He didn't have any of those kids on there that used
they
a gun to protect themselves. Oh no, that never happens.
You'll pray the kids whose brothers were gangbangers and got killed by other gangbangers.
Yeah.
Bring them in.
In his hometown of Chicago.
That if he had a son looks just like him.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, he used these kids as human shields. He used the kids to pull on the heartstrings of Americans. It's all emotional. And none of this is based in fact. And I mean, he couldn't get up there as a man. He's the president of the United States of America. If this is what you believe, stand up there, say what you believe. Don't have children behind you like he did with the Affordable Care
That just
Act.
shows him how desperate he is. He knows this is going to fail, and that goes into what I want to
He uses
talk
children
about.
all the time, much like Hitler did. But he had
And
children
Stalin.
when he signed the Obamacare. He had kids up there with him and took pictures. Look what I'm doing for the children. And
Again, I don't really care that much about.
I'm not gonna end up like Reagan, but because I have kids surrounding me. What did you have?
The good news is that
This was good news. This was all good news. Everything I've said today has been good news.
He said sarcastically. Good news is that an assault weapons ban and a magazine ban and all restrictions and stuff is going to be pretty much DOA. Larry Pratt and David Keene, Gun Owners of America and the NRA both have come out that Congress isn't going to pass this. They just don't have the votes. Even there's a lot of Democrats that are coming out saying, we're not going to touch this with a 10-foot pole, and we don't think it's the right thing to do. So I don't think that they'll actually implement any bans. Now, I think they might do something with background checks.
I saw these reports and I saw Congress people coming out and talking, saying they don't want any hand in it, but I also saw all of that with things like the debt ceiling that we have coming up now, and now the GOP is saying, well, we'll raise it for 3 months. We'll raise it enough to be good for 3 months. This is how it always works. This is a compromise that people love so much, and so I'm not too sure that we won't get some, maybe not as heavy as the president wants. Or Eric Holder, who says, yeah, you can, well, if I had my way, you'd still be able to buy assault weapons. You just have to go to your local ATF branch. So
I don't even know where my local one is. I didn't know. Maybe they'll start putting them in Walmarts.
There's one in Arizona, but they're selling all the guns to Mexico.
Oh,
so
that's that one.
I don't know. I don't know if
and
we'll
business
be able to
is
get them
good.
or not.
Yeah. Well, my good friend Larry Pratt, we talked about good friends.
Yeah, you're not supposed to talk about how we talked about
stuff off the air.
Yeah.
So I can't talk about last night?
Well, maybe you could talk about that.
Okay. My good friend Larry Pratt, who actually spoke at our constitutional rally in Michigan, was asked about, potential background checks, tightening them. And he says, it's a waste of time. And it really is. It doesn't do anything. It hasn't protected anybody. He and I agree that you need to get rid of the gun-free zones. I mean, once you let people carry guns in these areas like schools and stadiums and places where large people congregate, movie theaters and so on, churches, when you let people carry guns there to protect themselves, you're not going to have these mass murders. You might have a couple murders, but it's going to be mitigated by law-abiding citizens there with guns. That's where it has to go. And anybody that can't see that is being intentionally obtuse in their thinking. Obtuse. That's a pretty good word.
It's a good word. You mentioned talking about.
I do not think it means what I think it means, but go ahead.
I don't know how that's possible.
Grounded or blunted or stunted.
Yeah, we know what it means.
You mentioned last night Jesse Jackson.
Oh,
he talked about a date he had. He went out.
He went out one of the mass murder.
These semi-automatic weapons, these assault weapons, can only kill people, and in fact, they are threats to national security. I went out where the young man did the killing in Aurora, Colorado, with the arsenal he had. He was right near the airport, right near the runways of the airport in Denver. He could shoot down airplanes. So this is a matter of homeland security as well.
He went out with the man.
Where the young man did.
Let's see if I can find that.
Security. I went out where the young man did.
I went out with a young man.
I don't know what he's saying there.
I didn't know he was into young men.
That was Jesse Jackson?
That was Jesse Jackson.
He sounded drunk.
He's saying that assault weapons are a
threat to national security because you can shoot down planes with them.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I like to see that happen, but...
It's happened thousands of times.
I've heard. But they just keep it out of the
planes
press.
are shot down every day by assault weapons.
The NRA's kept it out of the press, right?
Especially shotguns that the guy actually used in the.
Do you have the Obama quote we used handy?
I don't know. I have a. Oh yeah, I mean
because we got something from our editor that this came on just live just now. We're getting a live.
Here it comes. Everybody's guns are going to be taken away.
Huh. That was interesting.
Wow.
Here it comes. Everybody's guns are going to be taken away.
Son of a gun. That lying bastard, I thought he...
It's easier to do when we're not on video because I can take that more seriously. Obviously, that one was taken out of context and edited. But
here it comes.
I edited it. I mean, Brian edited it. I wouldn't ever do that to our president, but we wanted to make it more accurate, more truthful for the guy.
You have a caller?
Okay. Kelly.
Hello. What's on your mind?
I was curious on what constitutes what makes a gun an assault rifle.
That's an excellent question. Do you know?
I don't, but the drummer in my band from High Class Truckers probably does.
You think so? Well, the problem is High Class Truckers is a pretty good band. I've heard those guys.
Yeah, but the drummer's an idiot.
Yeah, I don't like the drummer, but what they're doing in New York is they changed it from requiring 2 military-like.
But these are cosmetic things.
It's completely cosmetic. Everything that makes a gun an assault weapon is completely cosmetic. It's a curved magazine, which was part of the assault weapons ban that Clinton did.
A suppressor on the front.
A suppressor on the front that does nothing to the power of it. A foregrip, a pistol grip on it, which does nothing except maybe makes it more accurate.
Yeah.
Pistol folding grip. Stocks, makes it black, things like that.
The gun is still a gun. It's just how it looks, and it's ridiculous, and that's the problem. And not only that, but my dad's 30-06 is a lot more powerful than my AK-47 round, and my dad's is semi-automatic, deer rifle.
To do with as many rounds as it can hold, or
No.
as fast as it can fire.
No.
Because my dad's 30-06, if I put a 10-round magazine in there, it's going to fire as fast as my AK-47 with every pull of the trigger. And there's shotguns. There's
automatic to semi-automatic to single shot has nothing to do with it either.
Right. Now, a fully automatic weapon, people generally can't own unless they go through the ATF. They pay a $200 tax. They have to get a severe background check. They got to get permission from their local police chief. And the gun itself is anywhere from $15,000 to $100,000 to buy because they're restricted. You can only own ones that were made before 1986 or something like that.
86, yeah.
So they're a big demand and they're very expensive. So the average person generally couldn't afford a fully automatic weapon. But to get
the assault rifle then is basically every rifle out there.
Every rifle out there. Generally, that's true, except maybe a single shot.
I mean, if you
musket
look
or a single shot rifle.
Of assault, guns are made to kill. I mean, in general, that's what they're for. They're for hunting. They're for defense. They're made to kill. When you're talking about these bands that they put together and label guns as assault rifles or assault weapons, it's strictly cosmetic. It's what do they look like? What do we think
add-ons
they
do
can
they
do?
have?
It has nothing to do
Yeah.
with the actual functionality of the gun. I mean,
Or the lethality of the gun.
if it's brown and has a scope on it, it's as dangerous as a black one with a foregrip on it. It has nothing to do with
binoculars. Does that make me an assault rifle?
Yes, it does. I actually saw a video of a guy that held up a spatula and said this is an assault spatula because a woman used it to beat her kids.
Ooh.
I mean, and it's
dangerous. Was it
it's
black?
accurate. It was a black spatula.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, it didn't have a curved magazine or anything.
I think
but,
my mother has a couple of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I have another question, guys, I'll give you a call back.
All right. Well,
Hey,
Kelly,
thanks a
thanks
lot.
for calling in.
Yep.
Thanks.
We had another issue, and this is one that I hadn't thought about, and it brings up an interesting point. I'm not going to read the whole letter. I'm just going to sort of give you the gist. But it was written by a Mr. Cook who has a gun store in South Carolina, and it was an open letter to a Walmart. And Walmart is going in bed with Joe Biden and the anti-gun group, and I've heard rumors that they're not going to restock ammo or something. And Dick's Sporting Goods are taking these black guns off their shelves, and we're hearing this from a few things. And his thing was, he doesn't have a problem with these big stores. They're out to make money. He says, but the problem is that you're making a monopoly on 4 or 5 major companies that are selling guns and ammo, and you're forcing the little gun stores sort of out of business, so that it makes it very easy for political powers like Joe Biden and the president to initiate force on them to get them to kind of do what they want or to send their message of anti-gun. And Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, Sportsman's Warehouse, Academy Sports, Dick's, Walmart, they've all been contacted because they are the big players in this thing by Joe Biden to, help us get rid of guns, and what can we do? And that, I think, can be kind of dangerous.
I kind of want to dig into this a little more because I'm not sure I understand it, and I don't know if you have a bit more detail. Was the letter basically saying that Walmart, these big players, are getting out of the business because they're afraid of the government and they think that's what the people want, and that's not true? And that just leaves the smaller shops, which are much easier to control by the government.
No, it's just the opposite. He's saying that there are less and less mom and pop stores, less and less of these smaller gun stores. And when they become extinct and forced out of business, you'll be left with 5 or 6 kings of the mountain that have the monopoly on firearm sales and gun sales, and will have the best prices, and therefore are easily to round up together by the president and have certain things forced upon them to get them to play ball with them.
Okay.
I mean, that's what he's coming from.
He wrote this letter to Walmart.
Well, it was a message for Walmart. It was posted in some gun.
I guess what I don't was he urging
website.
them to keep selling firearms? That's what I guess I don't really.
No, I
understand
think he
the
was
point
just
of the letter.
I think he was just pissed off because he's going out of business. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, because I guess what I imagine is
He just says he thinks there might be a concern when you have a market share that's 100% in the hands of companies that bow down to any political pressure.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I guess so. He was making a similar point to what I was making. When Walmart and Dick's and Meijer, Kmart,
Whatever.
the big players get out of it, and all you have is the small things.
That would be good for them.
Except a small tax on those places affects
Is
them
a
much
bigger-
more than it's
yeah,
going to
it's
affect
a bigger
Walmart.
burden.
It's easier to say we're taxing ammo, and so your ammo prices are raising, but your markup isn't. You won't be making
Right.
any more profit. So now people can't afford to buy your ammo, and now you go out of business because your business was built on
and it makes
ammo
harder,
sales.
And that's the other thing. My brother went into Classic Arms in Lansing, which is a gun store that's been around for a long time in Lansing, and was looking at some just 7mm Magnum rounds for his deer rifle, bolt action, deer rifle. And he said, I just wanted to check what their prices are. And I was absolutely shocked. I mean, I blurted out and I basically said, well, that's a screw. 20 rounds, they wanted $70 for a box of ammo.
Jeez.
And
I'm sure it's
I don't
either
know.
a demand thing or a supply thing. I guess
there's
it's a supply and demand.
Right now, it's supply and demand.
They go together. You take an economics, it goes together.
I painted myself into a corner.
When Department of Homeland Security orders how many rounds of ammo, let's face it, who do you think the corporations are going to be pushing whose orders to fill first?
Yeah.
Not the consumer market at a few $100,000.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the other thing.
Exactly
and,
right.
and they'll give it to the government at $1 a box, let's say, and they sell it for $2.50 a box. I'm using those numbers. $2.50 a box to the general public.
But I mean, on the larger scheme, how many retail establishments did we go to today, and each one had higher prices on everything than the last time we were there?
Well, yeah, they're all higher.
We talked to the owner of the one, and he said, that's all I can do, with the extra burden of taxes and things like that, and the economy. People don't have money. I need to make more. I need to cover my overhead expenses, and taxes went up on small business owners like crazy on January 1st.
You're talking about in Michigan, or
nationwide? Yeah.
Oh, you're talking, yeah.
I mean, with the whole
with the federal stuff,
hurt small business owners like the ones that we visited today, but prices are going up.
Another thing is, too, here's all these antis I talked to. So you really think the government's going to try to do something to the American population? Okay, look at the stuff that's lined up against the American citizen. Passage of NDAA again, 2013.
Right.
Indefinite detention.
Yep.
Look at the millions of rounds
Thanks,
being sold to Department of Homeland Security and all this other stuff.
Yep.
So, all this stuff afoot at the same time, and they wonder why we're really kind of concerned about it.
A little concerned. Yeah, I don't want to use paranoid. Because
I said thanks, John. I meant McCain, not you, but for some of that crap.
I like to look at paranoia as just being, acutely aware. Anyways, I like this. I mean, people are fighting back, and really, it's scary, and we know what Obama's intentions were all along, and people were saying, "Oh, it'll never happen. He's a Second Amendment guy." He's not.
He was never. He was secretive about it, but he talked to the Brady campaign way back in like 2008, 2009, and said, "We'll get gun control in there, but we're going to have to do it behind the scenes for now."
Yeah,
I mean, he's
in the second term,
always been a proponent of gun control.
Right, and people were denying that.
People control.
Even I know gun owners that vote for him, and said, oh, he's a good guy to gun rights. It's crap. But I like this because it was in Vermont. It was a rural area in Vermont that's close to Burlington, which is a big city. Is that the capital of Vermont, Burlington?
You're asking me about geography?
I think. Anyways,
I don't
big
know
city
the capital
there.
of Michigan.
And Jersey, isn't it?
Jersey, Michigan. Yes, it is.
Anyways, they told the police that if Burlington does propose their gun ban to ban semi-automatic rifles and magazines in the state's largest city, it would be a city ordinance that you couldn't own it. They told all the police departments, said, you're not going to be able to train at our range, and it's one of the ranges that they all use, I guess, because there's so few of them in the area.
Yeah.
It's Valley Fish and Game Club wrote a letter saying, we can't support the city of Burlington.
Well, you're trying to restrict our business.
Yep.
We can't support you. And it wasn't that they didn't support the police. The job the police were doing, it was you can't support the local government. I have the NRA ad here. I want to play it real quick. It's like 30 seconds, and then we'll wrap up.
We've got about 3 minutes of the show.
Are the president's kids more important than yours? Then why is he skeptical about putting armed security in our schools when his kids are protected by armed guards at their school? Mr. Obama demands the wealthy pay their fair share of taxes, but he's just another elitist hypocrite when it comes to a fair share of security. Protection for their kids and gun-free zones for ours.
Yeah, so that's a very recent ad that came out from the NRA.
Within a week.
Pointing out the fact that Obama's kids have armed security, and he didn't really love the armed guards in schools idea.
No.
Because more guns are never the answer.
Yeah, even though research shows more guns, less crime.
Yeah.
John Lott studies have shown that for the last 20 years.
And like I said, I don't love children being used in politics like
I don't
this.
love children,
and
period.
Obama's children have nothing to do with this. They shouldn't really be brought into it. But it's a valid point. I mean, all kids are important, don't you think? Well, you don't think that.
I don't think so.
Don't even answer. But,
No.
I mean, let's protect them all. It makes sense to me. I don't know. And I've been finding myself agreeing with the NRA More and more.
Oh, no.
I think it's because the points they're making are valid and they haven't compromised yet.
Yeah.
That's why I'm waiting to see what does go through
happens.
Congress and what the NRA compromises on. But so far, so good on this whole issue coming out of Sandy Hook.
Let's see.
I think we are getting pretty close on time.
NRA came out with a game for little kids on safe shooting. They shoot targets and stuff. You see that?
Yeah, a mobile, I think an iPhone app, and it's target shooting. It's not violent or anything like that. It's not like the
other one where they actually shoot children.
Well, it came out right after the Sandy Hook shooting. Some idiot made a game that you go through that elementary school and shoot kids, and was adding a bonus level to shoot the president of the NRA at the end.
And doing a callback, like they say in the business, to the New York legislation. One of the things that is happening to Remington, and what's the other company that's there? I can't think of it.
Remington was the one I remembered.
Remington, and there's like two big gun manufacturers in New York State, and people, pro-gun people, are saying, we're not going to buy from you anymore because you pay taxes to the state, and we don't want to support the state anyway. And some of the other states are saying, why don't you move your factories and facilities to our state because we're pro-gun, and we'll do everything to make you welcome, and we got good workers, blah, blah, blah. And they're putting pressure on a couple of these large gun manufacturers to get the hell out of New York State.
Remington, I know our governor wants to raise taxes, but you should move to Michigan.
I would love to have them there.
Yeah, I think we pretty much out of time now, John.
Yep.
Okay.
So we want to say thank you, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Tell your friends. Check us out in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And until then, we want you to stay armed,
stay safe,
and stay informed.